Wes Harty, and you're listening to Happy Earth Market Podcast Generations.
Hi, everyone. This is Happy Earth Market Podcast
Generations.
I'm Sam.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm JR.
And today we have...
Introduce yourself. Full name.
Full name?
Full name.
In public?
Yes, sir.
In public.
Wesley Eugene Harty.
Wesley Eugene Harty is also my grandpa.
Yay!
And he is actually the inspiration for this show. Us sitting around a campfire one night decided, you know what? My grandpa has this great story. We should tell it. So, where were you born?
I was born in Hinsdale, Illinois. And it's either a sanitarium or a sanatorium. I never could keep it straight.
What's the difference?
Well, one is like a hospital and the other is more mental.
Is it a small town, though?
It was. We lived in LaGrange, Illinois, though. The hospital was next door in Hinsdale.
That's awesome.
And the funny thing is, our doctor in Yucaipa was a resident in Hinsdale Hospital for 14 years.
Wow, what a coincidence. That's awesome. So, what were your parents like? What was it like living in your parents' household? What was it?
And did both your parents work? Let's start with that.
They did before they got married.
Okay.
And they did right after they got married in Alliance, Nebraska. But when my dad was working for the railroad and was transferred to the main office in Chicago, never understood what he really did, but that's okay. But Mother did not work. She had 2 boys.
Oh.
That's a big job.
13 months apart.
Okay.
Wow, they're busy.
So you have one brother.
I had, yeah.
Had one brother. Yeah. Any sisters?
No.
No sisters.
Just the one brother. And
what was his name?
My brother's name, I don't know. It's been so long.
Grandpa.
John Francis. Actually, I think he was named after a great uncle who was very wealthy, but it didn't work.
Didn't pay out.
No.
Didn't help. And your parents were both. What was their background? Where were they from? Like,
my mother's from Ireland.
Okay.
From Crehennan, up in the northern part of Donegal, Ireland.
Wow.
And she came to the United States when? How old was she?
She and my grandmother came over. There was 5 girls in the household.
Wow.
And she and my grandma came over in 1911 and settled for some strange reasons, because we've never figured it out, in Mitchell, Nebraska.
Maybe they like the corn.
That's a big Irish hub. No, I'm kidding. Like, you'd think they went to
Nebraska.
You'd think they went to Boston or something like that, but
Or New York.
Or New York.
Yeah.
And your father?
My father was born in Galesburg, Illinois.
Okay.
And
where did his family, like, how did they end up in America? Do you know that?
well, they'd been here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Forever.
It's only my mother's side that. Well, no. Let's now that you mention it.
Okay.
The first Harty in America was Patrick Harty in 1826.
Okay.
From County Cork, Ireland. And he lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you want something interesting, their family plot is about 3 blocks from where Julie works, our daughter
No
Julie.
way.
Oh, wow.
That's neat.
That's super cool.
Really weird.
And she lived there for a long time and did not know that. So we just found out a couple of years ago.
That's neat. That's neat. So when did you come into the world?
At an early age.
What was the year? What was the year, Grandpa?
1927.
1927. So you've seen quite a bit of things in your age.
First couple of years I didn't see a whole lot. So.
What was what's your first memory? Like what? Like first public memory, like you remember, like the like for us maybe 9/11 or something like that. What's your first like historic memory?
Wow. Oh goodness! I mean, I remember my cousin who lived in Sycamore, Illinois, had a Hoover button.
What's that?
Vote for Hoover?
Vote for Hoover.
Oh, okay.
So that's 1932.
Okay.
Wow. So you remember the
that.
Hoover button.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
But that's neat.
Yeah, and everybody else I knew was against Roosevelt. So.
Really?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Wow, why?
He's a Democrat.
Oh, there's that. It's okay, Mom. You can laugh.
What was dinner like around the table at your house with your brother and your mom and dad? What was a typical dinner? Was it usually around a kitchen table? Did your mom cook?
Let's see. She cooked. Yeah.
Okay.
Had a dining room.
Mm-hmm.
Our little house in Brainerd Avenue in LaGrange, Illinois. Can I digress a little?
Totally. Yeah.
Just before we went to the Philippines, I was speaking at a church in Wheaton, Illinois, and we took a day off to try to find where I lived in LaGrange, Illinois.
You're saying we, I'm sorry, we're talking ready, we being you and Grandma, who's sitting right next to you.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay,
This
continue.
Beautiful lady.
She's beautiful. Continue.
And we found it.
Oh, cool.
615 North Brainerd Avenue. Went to the door to just see who lived there now. And this 9-year-old boy comes to the door, reminding me much of myself.
Oh, wow.
Neat.
And his grandmother owned the house. So I don't know how far back that was.
Maybe it was
When did you guys leave there?
1936.
So she could have been the next owner, like.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
But she wasn't home.
Oh,
shucks.
Bummer.
So anyway, it was a nice dining room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, always 1 bath.
Always 1 bath.
That's all you needed.
And a
We're
basement.
spoiled these days.
But a basement, a nice basement.
Was the basement finished?
Yes, my mother had a mangle down there.
A what?
Aha.
What is that?
She ironed the sheets on this machine, a big roller that heated. Put the sheets in, pulled the lever, and this back part going against the roller, and she put the sheets through. It was called a mangle.
And it would press the sheets and make them pretty?
Pardon?
It would just make them pretty? What was
She ironed.
Okay.
She always ironed all the sheets and pillowcases. And
the ones that you slept on?
Yes, and it was nice.
Sounds nice. Sounds really nice.
Has Grandma ever done that for you, iron the sheets?
No, who ironed sheets? Yeah, so what was your dad like? What was a typical day just hanging out with the family like?
Well, a typical day was that mother usually took him down to the train station and he took the train into Chicago.
Right.
And then she'd go back and pick him up at, 6 o'clock.
Was he strict? Or was mother more strict?
She was more strict.
Grandma was more strict?
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Ouch.
So spankings. Did it take a lot to really upset her?
Well, who knows?
It's a long time ago. Okay.
I didn't think it was that much.
People don't really hit their kids anymore. And that's one of the things that came up on the last show we did, was that the discipline back then was very physical, but not anymore. Do you think that it was... Do you think there was value add to physical discipline, or was it not? Do you think it's better now?
Well, I would think it would be better now.
Not getting hit all the time?
Not getting hit.
Yeah, that's what the last interview we had on, too. He's like, yeah, of course, hitting somebody is bad. Like, nobody wants to get hit. So where did you go to high school?
I went to Ogden Avenue School in LaGrange, my first grade. And one day I got to the edge of the playground, because we always walked, and the bell rang. And I ran all the way home. I was late. And I can still remember that, crying and running all the way home. So mother had to take me back to school.
So you didn't go to school? Oh, you did. Bummer. I thought you got to play hooky that day.
Play hooky that day, yeah.
Was there anything bad that you did in class? Were you cut up in class at all?
Well, in kindergarten I must have, because one time I couldn't feed the fish.
That was your punishment?
You weren't allowed to feed the fish?
Was was everybody allowed to feed the fish, or was that your job?
No, that was if you were good, and there was kind of a pond, not a pond, but not a big fish bowl, but in the middle of the classroom that I remember. And if you were good, you got to feed the fish.
You didn't get to feed the fish.
No, I must have done something terribly wrong.
Well, if that's the only bad memory you have is in kindergarten doing something bad, I think that's okay, Grandpa.
Oh, okay.
You never got in trouble at all in high school or anything like that?
Usually not.
Really? Because I'm curious, because Eli gave Nathan and I a lot of crap, and I'm sure I've heard the stories. I've heard the stories of Nathan giving his mother a ton of crap. I just assumed it ran in the family. Apparently it doesn't. No? Okay.
Maybe we...
Are you kidding?
Were your parents religious?
We went to First Baptist Church always. During the sermon, the kids would go to the kids' church or something. My mother found out that we were running around downstairs.
Not participating in class.
And never went to kids' church again.
Ooh.
You just sat in the adult church with your parents?
That sounds like fun.
That's a bummer.
But a funny thing, because up in front there's the organ, choir, and a lady looking out a little window at the organist.
What is she?
And for the longest time I couldn't figure out what that was, and then it dawned on me it's a mirror. I never could figure out what that lady was doing.
That's
funny.
Did you? So you guys were religious. How were Christmases at home then? Were they definitely not consumery like they are now, I assume?
Well, everybody did a shopping. I remember Christmas Eve, if we hadn't gotten anything, everybody went out and we bought something. I got through first, got home in the snow, and the house is locked. So I had to wait till everybody else.
Until everybody else got there.
But that was basically it, But there was just the four of us.
So they were kept small and simple. There were no aunts and uncles and cousins coming for family.
No, I don't remember anything.
Christmases.
I do remember at the Chicago World's Fair, 1934.
You went.
Not only we went, but we lived near Chicago, so we had relatives
coming in. Oh, I see.
Coming in.
So you get to see your whole family then?
And staying at our house so they could go to the Chicago World's Fair.
Oh, cool.
How neat.
Yeah.
So it was like a reunion?
Well, sort of.
Of sorts?
Yeah. We had a problem with the Harty sisters and so forth. They get mad at each other. And maybe 3 years later they might talk again.
Oh, so separation of family happened a lot when you were...
And I remember Aunt Charlotte in a green dress. Isn't that the interesting thing?
That's what you remember?
In the bathroom, putting on her makeup and had this bright green dress on.
And do you remember what any of the fights were over?
What?
Do you remember what any of the Harty sister fights were over? Do you remember what would cause them not to talk for years? No. You don't have to say.
Well, sometimes I never knew.
Right.
But I remember that my grandmother was in a hospital in Berwyn, Illinois, with cancer. And my mother gets on the train, goes to Berwyn, gets her mother out of the hospital, and brings her to our house in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
Well, that
pissed off
a whole
the
bunch of
sisters.
people not talking to us.
I'll bet.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I kind of get that one.
It sounds like your grandmother probably suffered less at your house than she would have at the hospital. So your mom was a pretty cool lady, it sounds like.
Well, she had the gift of hospitality.
That's nice.
And she, yeah.
Did your parents have get-togethers or parties or anything like that? Was there ever did they have like a social aspect to their home?
I don't remember anything like that at the house where we had
like
parties and people over.
People over just to hang out.
We active with church, so there would be dinners and stuff like that at church.
So what did you and your brother do for fun?
Well,
typically
we fought.
That's fun. Fist fights, black eyes with each other.
Well, yelling, only 13 months difference.
Yeah.
And we played out in the neighborhood. His nickname was Hammerhead.
That's an
Why?
awesome nickname. Why?
I don't know.
The
Hammerhead.
Hammerhead.
You want to know what mine was?
Yes.
I'm not telling you.
Oh, come on. You don't have to, but I'd really like to know it.
It's brainless.
Brainless. And why were they calling you that?
That was your neighborhood nickname?
Yeah.
Hammerhead and Brainless.
The Hammerhead and Brainless Hardys.
Were the arts part of your growing up? Like, was music played in your house a lot?
I started piano. In fact, I have the original piano. We started in 1934.
Wow, cool.
That's neat.
You still have that?
Yes.
Awesome.
Chicago at the Wurlitzer School of Music.
Mm.
Gee, Dad, it's a Wurlitzer.
That's fancy.
Was that the slogan?
That was a big line back
Oh, okay.
So you started playing music back then, and you've played it ever since?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, a couple of years ago, I found in our piano bench
Mhm.
the bill of sale.
What?
Oh, cool.
That's
That is
pretty neat.
amazing. That makes it super legit.
Yeah.
Antique Roadshow. Here we go.
For the piano or me?
You. With the bill of sale from the piano.
Oh, okay. So both my brother and I started in piano.
Okay.
Mother tootled us into Chicago every Saturday for lessons.
How approximately how far was Chicago from where you grew up?
About 14 miles.
Oh, okay.
So
So right there.
she really encouraged your music.
Yeah.
What was the first song that you ever played? Do you remember? Like the first song that you've ever.
Besides Marietta Little Land.
Yeah.
Besides that, like complex, like I don't know,
Oh,
for release
goodness.
or something.
Come on, Grandpa, you can. How about this? Which one's your favorite one to play on the piano?
Yeah,
What's
that
your favorite song to play? Hands down, you have the most fun playing it.
I enjoy stuff by Brahms, but
Stuff
I
by
didn't
Brahms.
do Brahms when I was
When you were
Right,
young.
right. But that's what you enjoy doing now. I want to hear it.
Have you ever heard my grandma play?
No. Well,
Oh.
yeah, he played at our wedding.
That's true.
That's the only time I've heard him play.
That organ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fast forward through elementary school and now you're in high school. What is young Wes into in high school? Did you play sports? Did you?
No.
No. I thought you played. I thought you were a gymnast.
Well, that's what you'd call trained.
Got you.
My dad was transferred
Mhm.
from our busy Chicago life and so forth to a little town of about 3,000 called Wymore, Nebraska.
Mm.
Never heard of it.
And who has? Except there are people in our church who have relatives in Wymore.
But bottom line is you're used to the hustle bustle of city, and now you're living in country bunky towns.
We were. If you went out a little ways and looked, you were looking into Kansas.
Okay.
We were in the south.
Just big and flat, right?
Yeah.
Tornadoes.
No, I don't remember tornadoes, but I remember locusts
Oh.
and,
Oh, wow.
and grasshoppers. And we were there moved in 35, 36, middle of the Depression,
Mhm.
drought.
Mm-hmm.
You look out and watch Kansas blowing in.
When was the Dust Bowl? Wasn't that around the same time period?
Yeah,
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
south of us. I mean, Nebraska. But I remember driving with my dad over to some town up north of where we were.
Mhm.
Stayed overnight, came back. Going there, crops. Coming back, nothing.
From a
Is
windstorm?
it just
No,
from the drought?
grasshoppers.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Wow. That bad.
Yeah, it was.
They just
So
ate everything in sight.
You've seen like those locust storms where they just come through. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've seen those on TV. It looks crazy. Like
A cloud of
it's just a
bugs.
cloud of locusts coming. Like it's
These were
almost-
grasshoppers. They were eating part of the telephone poles.
Wow.
No kidding, it was
They
weird.
were hungry.
Yeah. And I remember the thermometer in our backyard
Mhm.
in the shade, braking at 120.
And that's super rare for Nebraska, right? That's like
Well, that whole period of
Mhm.
time with no rain and
Super heat storm came through. Wow.
But that's weird. Most people didn't head to Nebraska during the Dust Bowl. They headed away.
Well, Dad worked for the railroad, and he was assigned, and I suppose it was considered a raise
Right.
because he was a not superintendent, called master mechanic.
Oh, okay.
And Weimar was a real hub coming out of Lincoln, Nebraska, going into Kansas and through that area.
So he just went where the job told him to go, basically.
Where he was assigned.
So
We only lived there 11 months.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So where'd you go after that?
Well, first of all, we lived in 3 houses in
11 months?
Wow. Why is
Why?
that? Why?
Well, the first one was really old. If you can spend time, really old in 1936.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it's old.
Was it a cave?
No, that was later. So then we moved, and there'd been a house next door to the original house that my dad really liked. It was brick and very similar to what we had in Illinois. It came up on the market for rent, and so we moved.
All excited.
In a month or 2 months later, we were transferred to Sheridan, Wyoming.
Oh gosh.
When somebody says Wyoming, I just think horrible winters. That's all I think of.
You know what I thought when I found out we were going to go to Sheridan, Wyoming?
No.
It's like a fort with the Palisades, you know,
Yeah.
and Indians camped outside.
That's what you really thought?
Yeah.
That was not true.
Who says so?
I'm asking you, was it true or not?
No, it was not. We were a town of 3,000, a town of 10,000.
So by the time you get to Sheraton, Wyoming, how old are you?
I was just finishing 4th grade.
Okay, and you stayed there through
high school.
High school. Was how big was Sheraton?
10,000.
10,000 people. So how many?
We went back there on our 25th. She'd never been back there. This lady, right? And so we went back there, and hadn't been back since
you left.
Well, 1948 or something.
Wow.
And the town now was almost 14,000.
Oh wow, it grew a lot. Was it nice though? Was it well kept? Was it?
Yeah.
Did it seem depressed at all when you went back? No, it seemed nice still.
We only lived in 2 houses in
that. Well, that kind of brings me to the next question, because talking about moving around, and obviously your parents had money, it sounds like, more so than most people of that time. What was the feel? Do you remember, because you were pretty young, but do you kind of remember conversations of...
No, but I never remember us being in need. You know,
of anything?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And my mother didn't work, so I remember my dad talking about, we found a little chest with letters from my dad to my mom. And I think Paul has them, my son. And he's talking about when they went to Weimar, of making $350 a month.
Was that good money?
Evidently.
Sounds like a lot of money, because I read your letter of your 65 years, and you guys started off with a lot less than that. So, and we're talking way before you guys. So, well, that's...
So I never remember being in any sense of need.
Anybody really, friends or anything that weren't as well off as you? Or were you guys just in that?
Well, I suppose there were, among our acquaintances in high school or junior high and stuff like that, from all sorts. There were people who were bussed in from the country. There were people that worked for the railroad that didn't make... By the way, what's really interesting is my dad went to Alliance, Nebraska, where he first really worked for the railroad. That's where I met my mother. 25 years later, he was assigned back to Alliance. And there were some people still doing the same job.
Wow. Well, that's how it goes.
Still there.
But We also, lived through 4 years of a war.
Yep.
We entered high school in 41 and graduated in 45.
So your whole high school years were World War II.
Yes. But we were in Wyoming.
So how far removed? You probably were pretty far removed from the war. Was any of your was your brother in the war, or how was that?
Yeah, there were kids, seniors in high school that went right from there into the Army. My brother John enlisted, called the V-12 program, as a training program.
Okay.
So he never saw any active service at all.
Understood. Do you remember newsreels or like what was the feeling of the country in general, or was it just normal daily life?
No, it wasn't normal daily. First of all, we were on rationing.
Right. So
everybody rationed food and
all sorts of rationing. Shoes, sugar.
The country did. You're talking about civilians at home.
The whole country, yeah.
Yeah. So you mean rationing? Like you literally took your probably a certificate or something?
You had a ration book type of thing.
Right.
Wow. And my dad, because he was the master mechanic of that section of the railroad, had a C coupon and a C card for the car for gasoline. That's the top.
Okay.
Because he was considered
mission essential.
Yeah.
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 And then my mother, I can remember, she was head of the women's group at the church, and she would have to go to the ration board, whatever you want to call it, and plead for some more sugar or some more something out in order to put on some dinners
for the church. But she'd pay for it out of your guys' fund. Not out of a church fund.
No.
That's neat.
Was money no good at the time? Like you could only buy those things that were rationed based on the ration coupons?
Money was fine, but there were certain things that, in the stores.
They only had a certain quantity of them, and that's interesting.
And
why was there a shortage of things that we had to ration?
Because everything that could in some way work into the war effort
was being shipped for the soldiers.
Rubber. We used to collect tin foil. Like you grab your gun and collect that, and old pots, pans, everything. There was a collection center
to be sent into the war effort, to be melted down, or to recycle
whatever
it.
They did with it. It wasn't recycled. It was some way used in the war
repurposed.
effort.
I never heard that. Was there an underlying fear at the time that we could possibly be like? They already hit Pearl Harbor. Can they come here? Like, did anybody talk about that kind of thing? Or do you remember?
Yeah.
Is everybody scared?
We had air raid wardens in Sheridan, Wyoming.
You had air raid what?
Horns?
Air raid horns.
Wardens.
Oh, wardens.
Okay, I got you.
And I remember maybe one time they tested the air raid siren.
Okay. Did you guys have blackout curtains and all that kind of stuff?
We didn't have blackout curtains, no. But, who the Japanese ever found Sheridan? We're in real trouble.
Well, one of the questions I always wanted that, because that's, like, I'm a veteran myself, and that's the war that we look at as the Great Just War, and people were actually there fighting for a cause, and any war since then has, not that it isn't fighting for a cause, but it has had less compassion, and, like, that was really for a cause. Do you remember the excitement in the country when it ended?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was it like?
What did it feel like?
Well, you picked up, of course, we saw most of the stuff newsreels.
Sure.
And that's when you went to the movies and they had newsreels and cartoons and things.
I love those old. I love those old newsreels. Like they had a real comedy to them, actually. Like
the way they announced the news was really funny.
Yeah. And our boys take one of the Jerry's. Like, like it was really I don't know.
Upbeat.
Like, but then you compare it to what we get now for news, and the news we get now is really canned. They don't show anything. But then if you look at the Vietnam War, they showed everything. So it's like, where's the balance for that? I don't know. So the war ends and everybody goes crazy, or you guys find out about it weeks, days later. How's that work?
Well, the war in Europe ended on May 8th, 1945. Remember that?
No, but I was born on May 8th.
Okay. Yes. And so they
You didn't do nothing, Grandma. You just keep being pretty.
So we had a big assembly,
That's cool.
and I spoke.
What did you say?
I have no idea.
I could love to hear that.
No, because when I was a junior, I had won the state American Legion speech contest.
Oh, okay.
And came in second in the regional.
Wow.
That's pretty neat.
So
Congratulations.
if anybody ever wanted a speech,
You were the man.
I was the boy.
You're still a great speaker, so that's...
So I remember speaking on behalf of the students on that assembly.
You don't remember what you said? Did you prepare it, or you just go off the head?
No, I had something prepared, I'm sure. Although I do have a copy of the speech that I won the state contest.
Oh,
What was that about? What was that about? You've obviously heard it, so what was
About
it about?
the Constitution.
Good or bad?
Good or bad? Okay.
Perfect.
No, good.
It was
about the Constitution and the history of the Constitution and so forth.
Neat. Very cool.
Cool, so...
And I got a medal.
Do you remember when...
Any cash prize?
Nope.
Oh.
Oh.
How about a free pizza coupon?
Do you still have the medal?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Nice.
Of course he does. He still has the tape.
Do you remember where you were when you got the news, like of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then that was ending?
That's a story.
I'd like to hear it.
When I was a child. When I went into 7th grade, a friend of mine named Deed, we decided we were going to get summer jobs. Which is silly. So anyway, I knew the manager of the radio station, KWYO, 250 watts. You could almost hear it at the edge of town.
Almost. AM radio, of course.
So they gave us a job.
Doing what?
Evidently, I don't know whether it's shortwave or something, but they get cards from people who had heard them all over the place. And so we had to sort those and put them into albums and stuff. So that was
when you say cards, you mean business cards or?
No, like, oh, come on, postcards.
Okay, like postcards.
Okay.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Like fan mail.
Well, we heard you.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, I got you.
So whether it was like ham radio or something that was going on along with that, but anyway. So Deed and I used to play with our old Victrola. You probably don't even know what a Victrola is.
No, I have no idea.
It was you put on the record.
You put on the record. It was
like
what were those megaphones? No, not megaphones.
Phonograph.
Phonograph.
Yeah. Phonograph. And we used to play radio.
What?
Play radio.
So kind of like what we're doing now, only we're doing it more high tech.
Yeah, and we used.
It's the same thing, Grandpa. It's only internet.
We made microphones out of Tinker Toys. Anyway, and he would pretend like he was the announcer.
Oh, okay. Like
and I was the one that did the music, picked the records and gave some time. And we played that.
Coming up next.
So we talked the guy at the radio station into giving us a program.
What? That's awesome.
So I was in the studio, in the control room.
So you're like doing the programming?
Yeah, and Deed was in the studio. And so they always had, town commercials of some sort. So Deed would read that, then they'd switch over here, and I would announce a number, and we'd play it. And the boss would lean over me this way to do
all the buttons
until I figured them out.
Oh, cool.
How fun. How long did you do that?
Oh, not too long, because they got a phone call after, I think, our second time, and wanted to know who those two girls were that we just did that radio program.
Aww.
You were the two girls.
That's right.
Oh, dear. But that eventually later on worked into a job at the radio station.
Oh, cool.
That was lead-in for that.
Sure.
And when I graduated from high school, I had the opportunity probably to work at the newspaper because I'd worked on the newspaper at the high school, and we worked with the Sheridan Press. or work at the radio station.
Mhm.
And so I got a summer job at the radio station. And August 6th, 1945, the lady assistant manager or something like that station brought in something from the teletype.
Mhm.
Said, read this. And it was about the United States has dropped some sort of an atomic device on Hiroshima, Japan.
Wow.
Did you understand what atomic was?
I have absolutely no idea.
But you read it over
I read
the
it, yeah.
radio waves.
Wow.
And then little by little, there became more stories were coming in, and she'd bring them in.
You had to keep reading it.
So I announced that on our radio station.
Unbelievable.
Wow, Grandpa, that's incredible.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was talking about.
Right.
What did you feel like when you found out what you were talking about? Like you understood what that bomb did?
Yeah, and the story came in about the tests down in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Sure.
And how the tower had been vaporized. And so what is going on?
Yeah, what did we do?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Wow. And then we leveled the whole...
Yeah.
Well, you really, I can't think that in your head, if you would have no frame of reference for something of that type of destruction. You would have no way to even go, okay, that's like this. Especially if you're just reading it, that's a really good story. I mean, not a good story, but a great story.
And then I remember the cheering in the streets outside on at the end of the war with Japan. So
were people pretty happy about Hiroshima too?
They hardly knew what had gone on.
What it was.
You know,
Right.
Interesting.
At first, you just don't grab that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that one bomb could drop and 140,000 people can be killed. You know?
Yeah, that's a little unfathomable.
Yeah, it just...
I shouldn't have tried that word.
You can edit that out.
Yeah, I'll leave it. It's
You'll
funny.
leave it. Yeah.
So then I'm just curious, when you did finally see pictures of what that bomb did, what did you think? You don't know? Yeah, I understand.
Well, I can remember the tests that they showed, and the energy wave coming across the Pacific and wiping out, buildings on Bikini Island and so forth.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Then when I went to USC,
Yes, you did.
and took...
You know the alma mater?
No.
Oh.
No.
1 year.
Okay. So you didn't really go then.
Oh, well. Anyway, I took one of the classes was physics for non-science majors. And,
Awesome.
And all the teacher could talk about was atomic energy.
What?
Atomic energy. And he used to say, here's the head of a match, and if you could release the energy in the head of a match, it'd be like a bomb. And so...
Wow. So you leave Wyoming to go to USC. When did that happen? Like, at what point? What made you decide to go out there?
Well, a couple of things. My dad says, go to college. I don't care where. I'll pay for it. Just
Get out of here.
but that basically...
Basically, right, is what he was saying.
And so I thought, well, I'll just stay at the radio station.
Yeah.
It's a good job. Fun.
Yeah. Except, okay, you ready? The station manager's wife was the organist at First Baptist Church. They moved to New Mexico, and guess who ended up playing the organ at First Baptist Church?
You did. Well, you did have all that piano experience.
So
Only makes sense.
I played I took 10 lessons.
10 organ lessons?
Actually, 13.
Is it different than a piano? It plays
yeah.
different?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You strike a piano, you press organ keys.
Okay.
And you have foot pedals and
Sure.
all that.
Yeah.
So anyway, they came back finally from New Mexico back to Sheridan. And I think she really thought she was going to go back to the organ.
Somebody already had that job.
No,
Sorry.
which caused, it's my feeling, caused tension at the radio station between the manager, whose wife did not get back to the organ, and me. And one day, while I was on air, And then I put on some music, and he came in and chewed me out. I can't remember what. And then I'd have to go back and read a commercial, and then he'd start in again. So I figured that was my last day at the radio station.
You knew your exit.
Yeah.
Well, before we leave the subject of radio station, what do you recall was one of your favorite songs in high school that you got to play as a DJ? What's the one tune that you're just like, even still when you hear it, if you ever hear it sometime?
You never hear it anymore.
Right. What is it?
Let me.
Let me pull it up, Grandpa. What is it? What is
Everything has a story to it.
Sure, tell it.
Okay. I was asked to do a program when everybody else had gone over the station, but to close out the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did high school favorites. I would send a list around school, and from the Variety magazine or whatever it was, what the top 10 were songs, and the kids vote.
The kids would, the kids would vote.
And then I did it like a DJ.
You know, a show based around that?
And then I also did skits with just me.
That's awesome.
So would you do multiple characters during your skits? That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Could you do one?
Do one.
Do you remember any of them?
Come on.
I don't remember. Although the father of the station owner called up and said, "Oh, is that all you?" So anyway, I maneuvered that because one of my songs that I really liked was called Twilight Time.
Twilight Time?
It's Twilight Time. And anyway, so I maneuvered finally until I got first on the list.
You hustled for it. You really like Twilight Time. Like, isn't this your favorite? You kind of hedged the votes a little bit.
Yeah. I just encouraged people.
Sure, I get it. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I think it worked.
Is that it?
This is it.
Yeah, and you hear the organ?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I do like it.
Mom, do you want to hear it? Oh. You can sing it. What's your dad's favorite song?
Okay. So we'll just keep this going.
Yeah, just let it play.
Okay.
So that's your last day of radio. Guy's wife's super mad at you because you took her job.
Then suddenly there appeared on a table by the front door a catalog from USC.
Okay.
Where did that come from?
Your dad, maybe? I don't know.
And then I remember I have an Aunt Betty in Los Angeles. And I have a feeling that my mother or my father suggested they send a catalog.
So was it easy to get in? Like right now, USC is not an easy place for people to get into. Was it? And I'm not discounting your academic either. But I'm saying, was it easier to apply for colleges back then than it is now? You think?
I don't know. It was a strange period of time because the war had just ended.
Sure.
And the colleges were starting later to allow guys coming out of the service to enroll.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you go to.
So I got in registration line at USC with no material.
You just stood there, like I'm here with your ID.
And
just a registration line, like you didn't apply, you just showed up and registered for school, and that's cool.
And got in.
So USC at the time, so USC at the time, the war's ending. Was it full of GIs? Was it a bunch of guys who had just got back? And what was their attitude like?
I lived off campus, so I didn't get as much there as I did when we went to Westmont.
Sure.
Because I lived on campus, and where I lived, I think there was 5 or 6 of us, and 4 of them had been in the service.
Okay. And so what was their attitude like? Were they happy to be home? Were they?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
And some things they wouldn't talk about.
Sure. What was Aunt Betty's house like? Like, were you happy? Was she happy to see you? Happy to have her nephew there?
Aunt Betty.
He's bowing his head, crossing his hands. If you guys could see it, you would giggle.
That's another. She and Fred, when I first met him, had a house, a nice bungalow type of thing in the 1930s. When we went out to go to college, they lived in an apartment upstairs, above garages here, and apartments.
And this is in what city?
It's in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Next to a Jewish synagogue, which I thought was very interesting.
What, like Hasidic Jews or just regular?
Kind of with the long,
with
the things on their head.
like Orthodox Jews or
Not
With the weird sideburns.
Not Orthodox, no. But anyway, and I don't remember us talking to her, but Mother drove me out because I wasn't driving at that point because my brother had 3 wrecks and I
you got the short end of that stick, huh?
Yeah. So as I remember, we just sort of appeared at my aunt's house.
Surprise!
This long road trip through roads that were barely improved, and you just showed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Wasn't very memorable.
They have 1 bedroom, but they have a studio, have a couch, you know, when they're pulled out. So that's where I lived for a year.
Wow, on a couch.
On a couch.
At Aunt Betty's. While you went to school.
And Betty and Uncle Fred.
Were they hospitable, or what was that like?
Oh, I feel so sorry for them.
Why is that?
Because of you.
Yes. First of all, they never had any children.
Okay.
And so suddenly to get this wild-eyed teenager.
This young Wes Harty.
And they knew I wanted to get into a church. So near where they church was, there was a Baptist church. And I had no transportation. So they would drop me off at the Baptist church. They'd go over to their church, and then after church would come back and pick me up.
What kind of church did they go to?
It was a Pentecostal.
Okay.
I think it was it wasn't Foursquare, but it was something like that, Church of God. And I went to Fairview Heights Baptist Church.
Is that still there?
Yes.
It was the Superior Church.
Not necessarily. So anyway, if I needed to get somewhere, finally I learned how to use the streetcar system.
Oh, okay.
But I remember one time, my brother John, who had been in the service from Berkeley, was down visiting, and we sort of had a date with the pastor's daughters.
Ooh.
One who was married and her husband was in the service. Don't laugh. And so we had gone down to L.A. for Youth for Christ or something, and got back to their house, and it was late and foggy, and we had no way to get back home.
So what'd you do?
Called my Uncle Fred.
The look on your face.
Was he mad?
He got out of bed and came and got us. So
Was he happy about it? You don't look like he was happy about it.
I don't think he was happy.
So you stayed there for a year and you head up to Westmont.
Then I went to Westmont, and that's where I met her.
That's where you met your future wife, Elle Marie.
That,
And the rest is a long history we're going to go over.
just a minute. I'll drink to
Take a
that.
sip.
Westmont's in Santa Barbara, right?
Yes. It started in Los Angeles as a Bible college.
Okay.
It wasn't there very long.
Well, it went back into like 37 or something like that, or 1940. And then it was developed into a 4-year college.
Santa Barbara's nice, though.
And then in 45, they bought property in actually Montecito.
Okay, up on the hill.
Oh, yeah. Nice property. A couple of estates. And moved the school up there.
Cool.
And she got there early. So she helped to move.
She did all the work.
She helped the school get settled. And so instead of starting in September, it started the 1st of November.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
And again, to accommodate the guys coming back from the service.
Right.
So when I applied, they said they had no room.
Oh.
And then the guy, it was very interesting because the guy from the church had received 2 application forms.
Mm-hmm.
Said, why don't you go to Westmont? Oh. Okay. So I filled that out and in a sense got accepted, but there was nowhere to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they moved in Quonset huts
For the school.
at the school
Wow.
to accommodate.
The extra kids that.
And they called it Qville. I called it the last resort.
So when you say Quonset huts, were they like long single bay dome style Quonset huts?
The regular old
Yeah.
Quonset
Wow.
huts.
Cool.
That's neat.
And they had college kids there.
And yeah, at first they had 8 per Quonset hut.
Okay, so at least you had some room. And
It was bad. And in one concert they put showers and toilets and washables in. Then they cut it down to 5.
5 per Quonset hut?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say then they changed it to 16.
So my sophomore year at Westmont, that's where I lived in the Quonset hut, the girls did not have a dorm on campus.
Okay.
When they first moved up there, the girls' dorm was an elementary school in Santa Barbara.
Like converted or?
It had been converted by the Army.
Okay.
And so the school rented it out, and that's where they lived the first year.
Oh, wow.
Why they built these new accommodations? Or?
No, they didn't build them. And they bought another estate.
And just moved everybody into
moved
there.
the girls to that.
Wow.
But
Which was about a mile and a half from the school.
So about
Unless you got across through the property you weren't supposed to.
About how many people went to Westmont, you think? It sounds small.
I think we were 250 when we were there.
That's a small school.
It's 1,200 now. So
1,200. Oh, so it's not much bigger.
well, it's 1,200 because Montecito said that's much.
That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah.
Understood.
Interesting.
I mean, that's a nice area. California is beautiful.
Oh,
I can't. That'd be if I was going to go to college. It sounds amazing. It sounds like something out of a movie. Like I can just picture it. Even those colors from back then, black and white. I'm playing.
We have a black and white picture of me standing in the snow in Santa Barbara, 1949.
It has never snowed in Santa Barbara.
Yes, it did.
I do not believe you.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we built snowmen and all
How much
sorts.
snow? Like an inch?
Well, enough to roll up and
Build a snowman, like an actual snowman, like
well,
a
not
big one.
that big.
Nothing like that.
So what'd you do for fun during college? Like what was your hobby?
I didn't have any. I studied all the time.
I don't believe you.
I reserve the right to lie.
Oh. You have any stories, Grandpa? Nothing fun?
Yeah, sometimes too much.
Did you guys, when you guys were dating, did you guys go dancing and stuff like that? What did you guys do going out wise? When you were courting Grandma, what did you do?
You used the word dancing.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
Not then.
can't do that.
Couldn't dance back then? Why
Oh,
not?
no.
It's a sin.
Or movies.
You couldn't go to the movies
Mm-mm.
together?
You
You
had
mean?
to sign a pledge.
Sign a pledge saying what?
You went movies, no dancing.
At the school.
No, period.
I don't understand.
Who did you sign this pledge with? I'm confused.
For the when you enrolled in the school,
Uh,
there was a pledge.
that said you wouldn't go to movies.
And no movies, no
and you
dancing.
wouldn't
Why-
dance. What was their issue
why?
with dancing?
You got too close.
Too close.
Bad things could happen when you get too close. Or good
And-
things.
and
I guess
movie-
it
and
depends
mo-
on your perspective.
And it- that's weird. And the movies are dark inside, I guess. I just don't. Maybe the content. I don't understand the reason why they would.
You know, my Aunt Betty never saw a movie.
Ever?
Her whole
ever,
life.
Ever.
Oh,
What?
wow. You know somebody who's never seen a movie.
Wait,
Weird.
she lived in Los Angeles in the height of Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
never saw a movie. That's insanity.
That sounds amazing. She's stubborn, I could tell. She was like, I'm not giving in to society.
She's Irish.
Okay.
She came over by herself from Ireland.
Wow.
Really?
How old was she?
maybe 16, 17.
What?
Oh, brave young lady.
The
Wow.
others came in groups, and why
Yeah.
I never found out why she came by herself.
You never got that story?
No.
Mm.
But one time we had went down, and I was going to take her to see the Queen Mary.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't look.
Why?
Simply, she had some bad experience coming across, and it just stuck.
Across the ocean?
Wow.
To,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did she ever talk about what Ireland was like when she was there, or was just she was quiet, strict Irish lady, or how was it?
She didn't talk as much because Mama gave me some, and I don't remember everything
Right.
about that.
So, the magic happens. You guys meet at Westmont. What was that like?
Did you know it was love at first sight?
No,
You did not.
no.
Took a couple times of interacting.
I'll tell you how it happened.
Only if you do it in that voice.
She'll deny some of this. So.
Okay.
We did not have sororities or fraternities on campus. They had
Okay.
literary societies.
Ah.
And and there were brother sister literary societies, and so there were two sets on campus. And so we were in the fellowships, the two women and men's, and so we did things together. And that's where we first met. That's it.
That's it?
Oh, that's it? Now, how did you know you loved her?
How did you guys hook up?
Okay.
How'd you know?
So
When was the moment?
Grandma just shook. Yeah, I don't know how I know. I'm still not sure, to be honest. But I'm here.
Aw.
okay, so that was our first real contact together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we had a couple of classes together or something like that. In 1948, my brother contacted virus pneumonia, and he was back with us in Alliance, Nebraska, where my folks were living then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember sitting by his bedside, and I get back to school to start my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And on registration day, I am just really ill.
Mm-hmm.
Really ill. And I still remember, this is ridiculous, of a dream where there was a wide mesh all across the room, and I was underneath that.
Okay.
And finally I said to somebody, please get a doctor. So I had contacted his virus pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
While you were visiting.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
And had gotten to school before, and we were helped get things going and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I spent 2 weeks in Cottage Hospital, and kids were encouraged in Westmont to write cards. How are you doing, and so forth. And guess who wrote the most?
Aww.
Oh.
Aww.
And then when they got out of the hospital, I spent another couple of weeks in Los Angeles with Fred and Betty, recuperating. Got back on campus and had missed midterms.
Oh, no.
So everything boiled down to what I did for the finals.
Right.
It would be my first semester of senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were all going to go to a ball game, football game in town in Santa Barbara. And I invited her.
First date.
That was our first big date.
First big date was at a football game. That's awesome.
So then it got kind of serious then through our senior year. Well, if you read our letter,
It happened pretty quickly.
not only happened pretty quickly, but it looked like it was going to end pretty quickly too.
Right, because you're leaving to go back. She's got a job teaching. Like, how'd that happen?
She was teaching up in Vallejo. She'd already signed a contract for that.
Mm-hmm.
I had nothing.
Vallejo, like above San Francisco? That part?
Yeah, over in that area. But I remember the second semester of my senior year, standing at the registration desk, and somebody asked me, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" And I said, just out of the blue, "I'm going to teach school." Where'd that come from?
It just kind of came out.
It just came out.
So she, at the day after day of graduation, she left with her folks, tried to Vallejo. My folks and I drove to Los Angeles, got on a train to head back east. When we got to Laramie, Wyoming, I got off the train and went over to the university and registered.
For what? To be teacher?
For summer school. Yeah.
So, how did chance or divine intervention? How did you guys end up back together?
Oh goodness. I taught 2 years in nowhere, Wyoming.
Now, this is a story I love. Can you please tell me about that trailer you lived in? I feel like that's a story I remember from my childhood, and it always made me laugh. Please explain this little trailer and the snow and the hardships.
Okay. I interviewed with the principal.
Mm-hmm.
They would come to the university in the summer and hope to pick up some teachers in these little country towns. And so I signed up with Mr. Kittle, and he said, but there's you'll have to find your own housing. So what do I do? So my folks figured out, well, we can get one of these little, they're called Kit 10 trailers, which means it's 10 by 6.
Tiny.
It was actually 13 with the hitch.
Okay.
Can't really count that, though. It's not living space.
And so we found a place by a grocery store, a big open lot, telephone pole, and not telephone, light pole, something anyway, and parked it there and plugged it in.
Wow.
Nice.
The good old days.
I lived in that until April of my first year of teaching.
So you did a winter.
Oh,
You did a winter
I did a winter
in that trailer.
in my
Good.
Kit 10.
You Kit 10.
How cold was that? Like how many?
Well,
10 by 6.
first of all, you got to ask about the restroom facility.
Yeah, see, I was-
Did it have a bathroom in it?
No.
Okay.
Where was your bathroom?
Was there a coffee can? For those really cold days?
It was called a bath with a path. There was an outhouse.
You need to put your shoes on.
How far away?
Well, far enough.
Far enough that it's snow and it's winter and.
The fact that you have to put your shoes on to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
just sounds like a drag.
Well, and then one of the other teachers, the agriculture teacher, bought a 24-foot trailer and parked it here, and I'm here, and mine looked like his outhouse. Somewhere I have a picture of that, of his and mine. So that was a tough winter.
Sounds like it.
And one time, my mother had, bless her, had packed a heating pad when they put this stuff together for me. And so one early morning, winter, I hear pop, pop, pop. You know what that was?
Mm-mm.
Stuff. There was the heater going out.
Going off?
It had a butane heater,
Oh no.
Oh.
Oh no.
and I ran out of butane.
Oh no.
And
Right.
then you'd hear things crack.
Because things are freezing?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no.
So I found the heating pad and plugged it in and curled around that on my bed.
Oh.
But it's getting colder and colder.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally got myself dressed. My shoes were frozen.
Not bad.
Got them on and walked to the high school about a block and a half away. Went down in the shower room and just stood there in the hot water.
Mhm. Just to warm up.
Oh, it's
Wow.
some experience.
Wow.
And when I would change my sheets on the bed, you know how I did my laundry?
How's that?
I sent it home.
Mom, do my laundry, please.
I'm not kidding. I boxed it up and sent it to Alliance.
How long would it take to get back?
Well, but I had enough to,
So,
every couple
what
of
were
weeks.
you eating during this period of time, since you had?
I didn't do much cooking. There was a little stove on top of where the little refrigerator was, and a little dinette type of thing that went in. Usually I ate at the cafe,
Like a little
At
diner.
the school.
the little cafe.
Cool.
So
But when I would change my sheets, I'd have to chip them off of the wall.
that must have been really hard to deal with after coming from pressed sheets as a child. Going to frozen ones. That must have been
Well,
terrible.
And 4 years in California.
Yeah. Beautiful California.
Terrible.
Well,
I can imagine.
We got to suffer so that we don't. So.
That's right.
No, I always said if the Lord had told me what was going to happen, I never would have signed up for
Who
that.
would have? Yeah, I don't do the cold. So how long did you stay there? How many years did you stay?
I taught for 2 years.
2 years there. And what brought you? Where'd you go next?
Well, that's another story.
All right. Let's hear it.
My first year, I made a mistake of, among other things, of giving one of the board members' daughter a C.
Uh-oh. That's a big mistake.
It was.
And you weren't warned ahead of time by your superiors that you got to
This
pass.
is-
You got to pass these
I
kids
said,
no matter what.
But she earned a C. And he was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
When we took kids to the University of Wyoming for the speech contest, speech and drama, she wanted to do Shakespeare, and I had put on a deal at the high school, and she had done a pretty good job, but they didn't want Shakespeare. They didn't allow Shakespeare at this festival.
Okay.
Because it was.
Well, he contacted the university to get his daughter there.
The superintendent did?
No,
I mean the
board
the
member.
board member.
Excuse me.
And then I made the mistake saying, well, you're going to have to find your own way then.
Uh-oh. Did they fire you? What happened?
Youth and ideals.
So, well, at the board meeting where they did the rehiring, it was a vote of 3-2
Against you?
for me.
For you.
Oh.
Nice.
So Mr. Wall and the lady who did the office at the school. So I was renewed for another year.
Okay.
And after that, you didn't give children C's that were on the board, right?
No, but for instance, I had 2 freshmen that came to school drunk.
Okay. You know what? I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things, because that's a common occurrence for kids nowadays that come to school on lots of drugs. And so I always wondered if that was still something that might happen back then.
I didn't have drugs, but I knew kids were drinking.
Oh, yeah. Alcohol's a drug.
Yeah. And so one of them, I walked over to my trailer and let him sleep it off.
Okay.
The other one was not so bad, so I walked him around outside. Well, that did not go over.
What didn't go over? Just taking care of it, or they wanted you to I don't understand.
Well, I should have had him kicked out of school or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
you should
okay.
discipline them instead of helping them.
Yeah, and I would get in trouble with my principal because he didn't want to pay anything for drama. If you're going to do a play, you got to pay for that.
Right.
So he leaves in my box a catalog of free plays.
Down thumbs.
Really bad stuff.
Down thumbs.
And so I wrote him a 4-page letter, and the lady in the typing class typed it up for me because she was on my side.
Sure.
Basically saying, you hired me to do this, so let me do it. They let me, but they would
Fighting you back and forth all the time.
Real friction there.
Okay.
So it's something like that. But they didn't have anybody to do the girls' pep club. So I did.
Like cheerleading?
Yeah, I taught the cheerleaders, and they had been wearing they'd been wearing skirts.
What?
Long skirts with kind of like chains in it, so that when they spun, they'd kind of go out. And I'm saying, you can't be cheerleaders and stuff like that. So the girls got patterns for ice skating outfits
Oh.
Okay.
from some catalog
Mm-hmm.
and made themselves.
Wow.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught them
Cheer.
not only cheers but tumbling.
Oh,
stuff.
tumbling
Wow.
gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Neat.
Yeah.
How did the new uniforms go over?
The kids liked them.
Okay. And what about the what about the parents?
I don't know, but
So 2 years there.
okay. So when it came time for renewal,
Mm-hmm. The second time.
second time,
Mhm.
second year, Mr. Kittle called me in and said, "I just want you to know I'm not going to go to bat for you."
Did he tell you why? Was it because of that letter, or was it because?
Well,
the
there's a bunch of
cheerleaders.
things, you know.
The dresses.
Yeah. And so I said, "Okay." And
You're bringing in Shakespeare, cheerleader skirts. I mean, Grandpa, it sounds like you're
hey, I had my sophomore
bringing in
class
very
do scenes.
rebellious things.
I had my
happening.
sophomore class do scenes from Midsummer Night's Dream
Nice.
in tights.
You're a rebel.
That's the only way to do it, I believe.
I tried to make. So anyway, at graduation, he comes up to me and he says, "You know what? I just got fired."
Oh no.
I did not what?
Fired.
The principal because of you?
No.
Oh, okay. Why did you get fired?
Who knows?
Well, maybe.
No, I'm just trying to figure out the story.
Maybe it was because of you.
Yeah.
You did what? You let him go? You're fired. I was trying to sound like Trump, but I didn't do a very good job.
No, not at all.
Sorry. That's a
Well,
bad
that's what
impression.
that was.
Thanks. Yeah. You're fired. Still
So,
can't get it.
well, then I started applying around, seeing what else. And in one place, they wanted me to teach English and band.
Nice.
I don't know, band.
Band.
You play piano?
But you have to know instruments and stuff.
Yeah.
So several things where it was English and Spanish or English and something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got a letter from a guy I had no idea. Lived in Fresno, California.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a youth center. FYF, Fountain of Youth Fellowship.
Okay.
And invited me to come and be on staff. Wow. So I called her in Vallejo, California. And you know who was sitting in the living room? That
Who?
guy.
Uh-oh. A guy?
That guy.
Oh,
The guy who had
God.
written
That
you.
wrote my letter.
Oh. Wow.
Come to find out, she was part of an FYF group in Vallejo.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like Universe had something in mind. Like, you guys, let's just make it really easy and put you guys at the same place.
I said, yeah,
Hmm.
and drove out and stayed at her house in Vallejo
Ah.
and told him I will work with the center here in Vallejo. I really want you down in Fresno. No, but you see.
Yeah, there's this lady.
And I can remember one night,
Hmm.
and I'm sleeping, and it's just like the Lord is saying, "Oh, Harty, Fresno."
Mm-hmm.
And I just could not shake that. And I remember coming out in the morning at breakfast, and I'm telling her, I got to go to Fresno.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up in Fresno with the youth center. She's been teaching. We decided at the end of August to get married. She gets a job at this little Christian school in Fresno
Mm-hmm.
at $146 a month. You in my letter.
Yeah.
I was promised $50 a week.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think 3 times I actually saw that amount of money. But we had a house right next to the youth center.
Was that provided too, or were you guys paying rent there?
We didn't pay rent.
Okay.
That's nice. That helped probably
It
quite
really,
a bit.
Really helped, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the two of us. Oh, and by the way, I wrecked my car.
Around the same time frame.
What kind of car? Let's get into the details. What kind of car was it?
You won't believe this. It was a oh goodness.
I never heard of that kind of car.
No, they don't even make them anymore.
Fast.
They don't make them anymore.
It was an American Motors car,
Okay.
a little convertible type of thing.
I can look it up.
So you wreck your car.
Yeah, so the money I had saved
Gone.
pretty much gone because of having to pay for the car.
Right.
So basically, when we finally got married, we were down. I was down practically nothing.
Just broke. Starting off broke.
And anyway, had a guy from Wyoming that had been out there, and I had to drive him back home.
Okay.
And on the way, traded the little car in for a '47 Studebaker.
Okay.
Oh,
Somewhere along the line.
big old car.
I just want to tie this timeline together. What year is this that we're talking about?
We're talking about 1951.
1951. Okay. Because when I think of the 50s, I think perfect white picket fences and very straight-laced conservative families. And what was life actually like? You don't remember? I just the 50s to us. Sorry, the 50s to us is like I don't know. It's like that time when everybody was trying really hard to be the perfect
Right.
nuclear family.
Well, it's the atomic time.
Yeah.
But you were-
Pre-social change.
But it was after the war, and things had finally loosened up.
Everyone
No
started running.
rationing, stuff like that.
Right.
Guys coming back, jobs opening up,
Okay.
and so the economy started to move up.
Started to get better.
And then Dwight Eisenhower was elected. So I mean it was to us it was a good time. Anyway, my best man and I are in my little Studebaker, and it's kind of breaks down before I get out of
Oh
prison.
no. You don't have any money to fix it, so.
So we took it to a gas station, and the guy looked it over, and he fixed it for $4.
Oh, how nice. Was that a lot back then, or was
Probably.
more than you had?
Well, that pretty much cutting down to what I had.
Right.
And so we drove over, and we were married at Mount Hermon, which is out in the mountains above Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And her dad was a pastor, so we didn't have to pay him.
Nice. I'll save a couple bucks.
And so they had made arrangements, and where we stayed, and so forth. So at the wedding, not a whole lot of people there.
Okay.
Some of her family, her little niece and nephew from two different families and then her sister was the best woman.
The breast woman, you said. We're keeping that, by the way.
I was trying to get between best man and that was about it. Now my mother, first of all, my brother got married the same month, but on the 2nd of September.
Okay.
We were married the 29th of September.
Same year?
Same year.
Okay.
Cool.
Because my dad had taken off time to come to my brother's wedding, he did not come to mine.
Oh.
That.
He always liked him best.
Well, that kind of leads into the next question. Is it? Do you think that there was favoritism for the older brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did your parents show you love differently, you and your brother?
No, but it was pretty obvious that the dad favored John.
His first son.
Yeah. So anyway, my mother and Aunt Betty came, and we met them at the station there in Santa Cruz. And so Betty gave us, and we still have it, the silverware.
The family silverware.
Nice.
Yeah. And Mother gave us an envelope with $100 in
Wow.
That must have been a ton of money back then.
it. And she had been saving it up.
Oh, just for you guys.
So we were able to actually buy flowers for the chapel.
Nice.
Make it nice.
And then we'll have something, to get a motel that night. And oh, wow.
How nice.
Yeah. At the wedding, though, friends of her mother came from San Jose, and they lived in the hills above San Jose, more towards the beach.
Okay.
And they said, "Would you like to have our house
To stay in, or
they moved out, left the refrigerator full, and that's where we spent our honeymoon.
wow,
Aw,
neat,
Yeah.
really neat,
At no cost.
very cool.
Very cool.
This
That
is
sounds
like-
like a nice honeymoon too, up in the
just
hills
like-
in Santa Cruz.
Just like the Lord was saying, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
So cool.
so anyway, then we had to be back on Monday
Back to the grind.
because she was teaching.
Yeah.
It was really funny because they always called her Miss Wiley.
Uh-huh.
So now when I'd come to the class, I was Mr. Wiley.
So she wore the pants in the family? Is that what you're saying? She's just going, yeah, pretty much again, shrugging over here. Yeah, shoe fits.
My brother John was a person that if you did it this way, he would do it that way.
Understood. That says it all, I think.
Yeah.
Super stubborn in his own set ways.
Understood.
And he never finished the V12 program
Mm-hmm.
because he could come up with the right answer, but he didn't do it the way they wanted it.
I know some
Rebel.
I know a lot of people
Sounds like a
that.
rebel.
Yeah, and he worked for one of the big bakery companies, National,
Okay.
for a number of years, and then just said, "I'm tired of that." So he started driving a bakery truck.
That sounds fun. I mean,
That was it.
and he was happy doing that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Whatever fulfills you.
So first year of marriage, I mean, you guys are both teaching. What was it like moving in with each other and
Well, she's teaching. I'm working at the youth center,
That's right, sorry.
which isn't doing real well.
No, it's not doing great. This is a Christian youth center. I just want to.
Yeah. And they had gotten a building. The basement had been put in, but they never finished. I think it was supposed to have been a church,
Mm-hmm.
but they had a little 3-lane bowling alley down there
Okay.
and activity stuff. And so that was, and we had the little house next door to that.
Oh, fun.
So
Just had something to do.
So how long do you guys stay in Fresno then?
well, by the end of December,
Mm-hmm.
the youth center was
Kaput.
almost, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember driving down and staying with my Aunt Betty.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, my Uncle Fred had died in 49. We really didn't know what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we loaded up from Fresno and drove to Los Angeles and moved in with her brother and his wife in their little apartment.
Was it just the four of you guys, or was there kids involved in
Oh,
it?
they had one girl,
Oh,
Okay.
dear. So nice and cozy.
and she was pregnant.
Ooh, so cozy, cozy.
Well, it didn't last long, but we had nowhere
Nowhere else to go.
stay. But
Yeah.
Isn't it nice that we can always depend on family, though,
so
when we need to?
had it, yeah.
That's nice.
So I interviewed several different places, including a music store, if they can demonstrate organs or something.
Okay.
No. Then I went to the Baptist City Mission Society because I knew they had several schools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had one that would have an opening at the end of June because the guy that was at the church and at the school was, it was the church as a Christian ed director.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could have the job in June. This is January.
This is January.
So you have a few months to wait. What do you do now until then?
So I read in the newspaper that Citizens Bank was hiring tellers. Okay. So I interviewed and got the job and did teller training and got pulled out early because they needed somebody over on a bank on Alvarado Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't ever finish the teller training and was dropped into the
Just
the bank over.
trial by fire. You'll figure it out.
It's just people's money. Don't worry about it.
Totally.
It's not your money. Don't worry.
They're just now trusting us. They're just now trusting us again after the depression.
Yeah.
Right.
They're good.
Well, and I got transferred up to Limerick Park. Every now and then you'll hear Limerick Park in the news with riots and stuff going
Yes.
on, but not then.
Yes.
And one Friday, she met me. Was going to meet me at the bank, and then I was going to speak at a church or something or their youth program. In those days, all the stuff from your teller's cage, everything had to be accounted for, and they had what's called a batch machine, and it would run it through, and then it would balance. If it didn't, it locked the batch machine.
Oh.
My cage locked the batch machine. Oops. And I was over, and I thought, who did I cheat? And we went through that, and they went through it, and finally they said, just go home, and we'll check on it Monday. So Monday, here comes some of the big guys.
Uh-oh.
And what had happened was during the Friday rush, people were cashing checks, and I had borrowed money from the teller next door. Okay. And he's supposed to be in a file sheet of what I'd taken out, and I had it. Well, we didn't do that.
So she was short and you were over.
So, then he figured out that what had happened, and he evidently filled out a sheet because he's fine. I didn't know what had happened, so.
So no sheet, just lock cage.
So, and those were the days when I went and talked to the vice president about taking a job with the church and everything. He was very disappointed.
Oh.
Well, they thought they were grooming somebody for
the next
an actual position.
Up the ladder.
But that wasn't going to be your path, the corporate ladder. I'm so happy for that.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? I have a daughter and a granddaughter. They're both in banks.
That is interesting. Yeah, one of them travels all over BFA, like all over. What's up?
We can fast forward without hearing all the details. How many children do you guys have?
We have 5.
5 kids. Boys and girls, numbers, please?
1 of each.
1 of each would be an even number.
She knows.
Yeah, one of each quintet. He always says that because everybody's
2 boys, 3 girls.
And so
3 girls, 2 boys, yeah.
3 boys, 3 girls.
Raising so many young people into adults who also have their own young people, and some of them have double young people's grandkids. What do you think was the best part about being a dad?
Well, I love the kids. It's trial by fire.
Sure.
Who does what, how you handle it, how you. And I think one of the unfortunate things of being like at Forest Home, and I traveled a lot, which left. In fact, it's an interesting story. I taught, for 6 years I was a choir director and youth director at a church in Long Beach. And then went from there to Brethren High School in Paramount, California. And finished my first year there. Then the question is, what do you do with your summer? Because I'm certainly not making enough money to take a trip to Europe or something.
Right.
So during my time at the Baptist Church, I filled in for the pastor once at the Hollywood Christian Group. Anyway, made some friends in that group who also worked at Hollywood Presbyterian Church. One of the guys from the school, senior, and myself applied to Disneyland. That would have been fun. But anyway.
Probably could have got a discount.
Nothing. So anyway, I get a call from this Ed Doring when I know what I'm doing first week of the summer, because they've just started at Forest Home in Indian Village, and that'll be the first week, and Hollywood Presbyterian Church is going to take that week to get things kicked off. So they bring their fourth, fifth, sixth graders up for that.
Let me just pause you for 1 second. For the listeners who don't know, Forest Home is a Christian camp in the mountains in Southern California, and Indian Village is the middle school portion of that.
No, juniors.
Juniors,
fourth, fifth, and sixth graders.
Fourth, fifth, and sixth. Excuse me. Because fourth was middle school.
Close enough.
The less you know.
Kind of middle. It's pre-middle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, I told him, don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 5 minutes later, got a call from the director of Forest Home, who was in a meeting where Ed was calling from, talking about the summer, and wanted to hire me to be Bible teacher at Indian Village for that summer.
Okay.
Ooh.
It's a summer job. You wanted one.
It was a summer job.
Probably something you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
But then he says, we don't have room for your family.
But you need money. So what do you do?
Yeah, what do we do?
Yeah, what do you do?
We finally decided that I would go up, and we only had one car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And so maybe a weekend, something like that, she and the family would come up. So anyway, I still remember being dropped off in the car with kids and Ella Marie, and they're waving goodbye, and there I am.
Aww. Well, you have all 5 kids at this point, like they're all.
Yeah, yeah. It was 1960.
Okay.
So that was quite the challenge, though, leaving your family back and your wife back to take care of all the kids.
I get a letter from her. I should have saved it. And she told how she felt about the fact of me being up there. And she said, I really dedicated my life at camp to work with children.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, now you're going to be up there at camp. But she said, the Lord really worked with me. I have 5 keen minds to work with right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take care of them and work with kids through you.
Oh,
what a beautiful way to look at it. That is awesome. That's awesome, Grandma.
Aw.
Oh, Samantha's crying.
So stupid. Don't do that to me again, Grandpa.
2 weeks later, I get a call from this Ed Doring. Said there is a lady that has a cabin down on Prospect, down below Forest Home, and you could have it every other week.
Cool.
So the kids, everybody came up every other week.
So
to hang
every
out?
other week, she loaded up the car and the 5 kids, and drove up, and with a babysitter, and we all lived in that.
How fun!
In that little cabin.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
week
cool.
on, week off, week on, week off.
Sounds awesome to me as a kid. Like as a
Like
kid,
an
we're going to
adventure.
the mountains every other week. That sounds great.
It's an adventure. So that was the worst part about being a parent, was leaving them for 3 months at a time to work.
Yeah.
That was the
and
worst
the
part.
Lord answered that by opening this up for us.
Sure.
Okay, and I had to tell the people at Brethren High School where I was teaching. Oh, I know. I was offered now a full-time position during that summer to stay at Forest Home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, how do I tell the school? Because I'm signed up for next year at Brethren High School.
You don't. You just disappear. No, I'm kidding.
So I talked to the principal and told him what was going on, and possibility. And one time, I think it was the board chairman had brought kids up to Forest Home, and I'm over here, and I see him walking across the parking lot. He puts his hand out and he says, "Congratulations, we found your replacement."
They did things so different back then.
I hadn't even quit.
Jeez.
Wow. Before he even knew you were going to quit, he said, "Congratulations, we found your replacement."
Yeah.
No, I just talked that it's a possibility. See?
He
And
just
so
made it easy
they took
for
that
you.
as some person.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess so.
Goodness.
Yeah, he made it super easy for you.
So in 65, we went on staff full time.
In 65. So you missed all the fun in Los Angeles, the riots, everything.
Watched it on television. I can
Yeah.
still remember that.
As the social change in the 60s started to take hold, what was your opinion of that and everything that was going on?
Did you have any black friends prior to the whole social changes that happened? Because it took years, obviously. But.
Except at school, you know. But the schools where I taught anyway were primarily white.
Okay.
But had some
integration.
When I was eventually became the registrar at Forest Home, and there was a black group that came up, and I remember him standing on the porch of the big Blinko building there, and looking out. He says, "This place is happening." But there was a young pastor and his family, and became good friends with them. And I took Paul one time when I was going to speak at their church, and it was really, really interesting. But it
was an all-black church. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was it? It's
fine.
Did they sing more than the white churches like they show on TV? Was that pretty realistic? Like they sing a whole lot better than us and all that?
They're more enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm, yeah, that's what I mean. Just like,
So that's fine.
Yeah. Was it fun though? You had a good time?
I had a good time, and I enjoyed this couple and their kids. So. But as far as watching, I remember in our little cabin, one of the ones that we were in during the summer before we made the move up there, of watching the riots.
On TV.
On TV.
What did you think?
It can't be happening.
Oh, yeah, you thought it was completely, this isn't real.
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of people say that, like, it was so far out of the characteristics of America at the time frame that it didn't make any sense to them.
And it was in areas where we used to live when I went to Hoover Street Baptist Church.
Right.
Wow.
It's funny that we went to Hoover Street Baptist Church, and now Hoover Street to my generation is a notorious gang street. Like, we would never, ever go there. So that's intense. So you guys moved from Long Beach, right? And you're headed up the mountains. Are the kids excited? Family's excited to do this?
Just nods.
It's radio.
Well, there's a complication here because her mom and dad had lived in Phoenix, and he became very ill. We moved them over to Long Beach, and he died in Long Beach. She came and lived with us.
Okay, so now you got... Okay.
So she helped
first
with the
year,
kids.
Pardon?
She probably helped with the kids quite a bit.
Yeah, but she had a stroke. She was in the elevator with him at the hospital, and she had a stroke.
Oh
no.
And she was in a convalescent home when he died. And the people at the convalescent home said, "Don't tell her." And the doctor said, "Tell her."
She deserves to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she knows.
Yeah.
And so anyway. So the first year we lived at Forest Home, but we rented our house in Long Beach to 4 teachers from Brethren High School, and she was the house mother.
Oh.
Who was the house mother? Grandma?
My grandma.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Great grandma was the house mother. That's awesome.
She had a stroke. She got around with a cane and stuff.
And people didn't mess around with her.
No, that was...
Especially with the cane. That sounds scary.
Yeah, well, if she dropped it, all the stuff flowed out.
I don't even know what that joke means, but your mom and grandpa are both laughing. What stuff would fall out?
Booze.
Oh.
I'm joking. So we moved her up, and all our stuff finally. And I can't remember when. We lived in 4 or 5 different houses
in Forest Falls. You lived in 4 or 5 different houses up there.
Up Forest Home, or just down below Forest Home. But there was one big house on the corner right across from the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And one time it's terrible snow and everything, and we have to get up to Forest Home. And I'm thinking, boy, if we lived there, I just have to drive into the driveway.
It'd be super
Right.
easy.
We ended up buying that place.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a big, beautiful house too. Probably was plenty of room for the kids and.
Yeah, it was interesting because the guy that sold it to us carried the mortgage on it and everything.
Hmm.
Made it possible for us to.
That's nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
but,
Make it a little
Squared
bit
you away.
easier.
So it went from the Noble House to the Harty House.
Mhm. That's pretty cool.
Now it's a store, right?
Wait, before that, it had been a store and a barber shop
Okay.
and the post office.
Oh.
No.
And everything.
And when Mr. Noble bought it, then he just redid the inside, enclosed the stairway that had been outside going upstairs.
Mhm.
Upstairs had been an apartment, so he redid the whole thing.
Nice.
This huge, beautiful fireplace.
Nice.
Yeah.
Changing the subject again. What was the best part about being a dad?
The best part,
Mm-hmm.
having kids.
Be more specific. Because you didn't have them. Grandma did, actually. She did the work.
Yeah, but
You did the easy part. You just had to watch. Best part about being a dad, though. Now, I'm not even talking about at the time when you were raising them. I mean right now, reflecting back on being a dad. What's the very best part about being a dad right now?
my best part right now is having what I call the Magnificent Five.
All of your babies. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all super awesome.
And you know what's one of the best things about that? They talk to each other.
That's really good too.
Yeah.
Probably because they still talk to you.
No, there's that too.
You know.
I just don't listen.
They don't have to listen as long
hey,
as
listen.
they...
I have a philosophical question for you.
Okay.
How do you forgive yourself?
Sometimes it's tough.
Right.
It's sometimes easier to forgive other people than yourself.
Right.
Absolutely, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
Is there a trick to forgiving yourself?
Well, from a Christian viewpoint, if the Lord says, I forgive, you have to accept that.
Right.
And not kind of carry baggage around on it, but to accept that He forgives.
Yeah, that's a tough one, huh?
Yeah.
Well, dealing with personal relationships and when somebody causes suffering to you, somebody in particular causes suffering to you, how do you find forgiveness for that person that's causing you suffering? Even if they continue to do it, how do you continue to be loving and forgiving to that person that continues to hurt you? What do you think is the...
Well, again, I come at it from a Christian viewpoint.
Sure.
And it's not easy at times, but there is grace. And if we are recipients of God's grace and kindness, then it must follow then that we share that kind of grace and kindness.
Okay. So give what you get,
Regardless.
I like that.
That doesn't mean you like them.
Right.
Or like it
Right.
or what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
But just accept
Yeah.
for what is.
Why do you think it is that people have such an easy time forming bad habits, but such a hard time getting rid of them?
Because it's easier sometimes to do evil than to do good.
Well, even just habits in general are easier formed than they are broken. I just wonder if you had a trick.
Yeah, a trick.
So, Trump is president, and I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about voting. How different is voting today for you than it was when you first voted?
My first vote was for Eisenhower.
Wow.
Whoa.
And how did that go? Can you explain that process, how you did that? Did you get a sample ballot in the mail like we do now?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
So
I don't remember.
how were the people educated on the people that they were voting for?
Yeah.
How did you guys know?
You watched the newsreels.
So nothing's changed. Darn.
Why did you? Who was Eisenhower's running? Who was he running against? Do you remember?
Adlai Stevenson.
Okay. And why did you go Eisenhower instead of Adeline?
Well, first of all, you got a war hero.
Okay.
He was a general. He was, the whole European situation.
Sure.
He was and who better to lead our country? I mean, that was the feeling.
I couldn't agree with something more ever.
Yeah.
But as far as like standing, was there a lot of people voting? Were you standing in line to vote? Like you still?
Oh goodness, I don't even remember how
you
we
don't?
voted. I just remember that was our first vote.
I just voted.
Eisenhower.
I just voted, and I don't remember how I voted. So it was like 2 months ago.
That was a month ago.
I do kind of want to ask you. Trump is an anomaly. Trump is something I never thought I'd witness in my entire life. An uneducated person being put into the White House that is just, in my opinion, just babbles whatever come to his head, regardless. What is your opinion on Trump?
Can you make ditto marks?
All of those things. And I feel bad because there are true social conservatives out there that believe that the government needs to lean more towards what the Bible says and things like that. And I don't necessarily disagree or agree with them, but I feel like he's hijacked that ideology, and I don't think it's fair. It's not cool. I don't think he represents that faction of people even a little bit, but somehow he's convinced them that he does.
You know, when I talk to people, what the big thing was who's going to be on the Supreme Court.
That's huge.
I had one lady, and that was it. We've got to get someone in there who gets someone on the Supreme Court that's on our side.
We've had 2 in a row who are not, so I understand that. So.
That was it overlooked everything else, and that's
it.
That's
yeah,
it. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people really want Hillary to go to jail too. So.
Well, if you could be friends with anyone, dead or alive, present, future, past, who would it be and why, and what would you discuss?
Where are you getting these?
I wrote them. How about this? What's your favorite color?
Plaid.
Oh, gosh.
Who? I'd like to sit down and talk to.
Who's that?
The Apostle Paul. He is absolutely, when I read and I think, he wrote this. I know the Lord's involved in it, but he wrote this. This is a way of thinking, and I just absolutely, how in the world?
So you just want to sit down and pick his brain.
Oh, wow.
How did you come up with?
Yeah, like what? What would you ask him?
Yeah, what would you say to him? What would you talk about?
It's hard to say.
Sure.
How do you? I know he knew the scriptures, and he knew Jewish thought and stuff like that, but he's writing to people who are not Jewish, primarily Gentiles, and this remarkable way of thinking and putting things together, and you know what I mean?
The use of his words. He used his words really.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting ready to do a study on Colossians, and I'm reading this. Whoa,
that's one of the best.
Wow,
that's one of the best answers to that question I've ever heard. That's probably one of the best answers because it came right from your heart. Like you really would like to sit down and pick his brain and understood how he thought. That's super cool.
That's cool. I like it. Do you have any questions, JR? For Grandpa, you've been so silent through this whole thing. We forgot you were even here, man.
Who is that man?
Yeah, who is this guy at the end of the table?
Just listening.
Playing with all those buttons over there.
Oh, I have another question. Do you have any regrets?
Oh, there are always regrets. I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I had done that. Yeah.
Right. But do you allow your regrets to consume you? Have you ever?
I have at times.
Right.
And how do you keep it from consuming you wholly?
I remember Well, you met him. No, you didn't. Anyway, he just wrote me on a note. He says, just remember, you are not your past.
Nice, I like that.
You are your present.
Yeah.
I can dig it.
Last one. I know everybody's getting tired. Of all the places you've been in the world, you've been around the world doing awesome things for the Lord. What was your favorite place besides home?
Yeah.
What's your second home?
Was it the Philippines?
Outside of the U.S.?
Was it Indonesia? Was it?
I don't know why the Lord led us there.
To experience it, so you could tell us about it.
So it was hot.
It was hot? How were the people? How was the culture? Nice people?
Yeah, in the Philippines it was very interesting because people really were nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated that. But we lived in a city, so we didn't meet a lot of the regular folk, the country folk, if you want to put it that way, people from the bukid. But very kind and thoughtful to us. But they didn't think in English.
But they spoke in English, so that's difficult.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, English was not the native language.
Understood.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
What part of the Philippines did you?
We were down the very south on Mindanao.
Mindanao? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Davao City.
Jairus, you were born there, right?
No.
No, I thought
I
you
was
were.
born in Hawaii.
But yeah.
But my mother and father, my dad is from Cebu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and my mom is from Bohol.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little, almost not super south, but like kind of.
It's
just
above
it.
Mindanao.
Yeah, just above it, yeah.
We've been to Cebu.
Yeah, decided.
Yeah.
But that was your favorite place to be, besides home, obviously.
Well, I don't know. 'Cause I really liked Ireland.
Well,
We spent a week in Ireland.
So you're just saying that Earth in general is your favorite place to be?
he said Ireland is clearly his favorite place to be.
Yeah.
Did you just say Ireland?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Were you there?
Why'd you go to Ireland?
Pardon?
Why'd you go to Ireland? Just to see it? Was there a mission? What was your purpose to go to Ireland?
Just to go.
Well, because your roots are there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, I didn't realize my dad's roots were for Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I knew my mother was.
Mm-hmm.
And but suddenly you realize this is where we're from. We looked in the phone book in Dublin just to see the name Harty.
Pages
and pages
yeah,
and pages and
imagine.
pages and pages.
It wasn't pages, but there were columns.
That's interesting you say that, because people say that like when they go back to wherever their ancestry is really from, that they feel a genetic connection to that area. Like it's instant, like, oh yeah, I should be here. Now I've been to Ireland, but it was only to the airport, so.
That was Shannon.
It was Shannon, and we were gone as fast as we were there. So it was pretty to see from the air, but I would definitely love to go back and see it for reals.
Yeah, it's on the list.
Well, we're right at 2 hours, you guys. And
Okay.
Oh,
well,
really?
yeah, anytime.
Grandpa,
This is why we do it. Time goes by. We just have these great conversations.
it's amazing how fast it goes. So, final thought, Grandpa. Since this is going to be heard, hopefully by a lot of different people of many ages and backgrounds and cultures and
forever.
It's never going to go away.
Your story's going to live on
It'll
forever.
be here forever.
It's like the internet.
Yeah, so
It is the internet.
It is the internet. Just like it. Just like it. As a last thought, what is the best life lesson you can give all of us? What's the one thing that you have learned in all these years that's the greatest thing that you've learned as far as being a human being on this planet? How is the best way to be a human being, according to Wes?
According to Wes. I think you got to know why you're here. And I think the only book that really tells you why you're here, why you're created, and what you're here for is the Bible. And the very beginning is that God created us in His image to be in some way a reflection and represent Him, and to accomplish on His behalf a way of life that touches other lives. That's it.
That's it. Or just to find purpose.
Yeah, Peter says, to summarize in one sentence, he says, be good and do good. But you can't be good if you don't have the resources.
Right.
And those are spiritual.
Spiritual. I like that.
Right on.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us and do this. I really appreciate it, and I love you, and this is awesome. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandma.
Thank you, Grandpa and Grandma, for sitting in, listening the whole time. Everyone, this has been Happy Earth Market Podcast Generations. And we really appreciate you listening. Love and light to all. And remember, folks, if it has a commercial, don't buy it.
Don't buy it.